No spin, no propaganda, just deep insights and fearless conversations on the geopolitics shaping our world.
People who will call and start telling you about the Bible prophecy about America and everything. See, America is not in the Bible.
There's some people who, yes, they share the ideology of, yes, we and these people, we are equal, but they can't speak up.
Borderlines on Nigeria Info every Friday at 4 p.m. The world is changing. Don't just watch, understand it. Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Good afternoon, Lagos, Nigeria, the diaspora, wherever you're listening to us from, Palestine, London, Amsterdam, all over the world. Welcome to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. We're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. But we're not staying in Nigeria. That's why we're called Borderlines. There's a heck of a lot going on. Really, a heck of a lot. However, one of the critical ones is what we're going to be examining. It is consequential and it is potentially destabilizing. Perhaps, possibly, one of the most destabilizing geopolitical flashpoints in today's dystopian Donald Trump world of geopolitics. You must know by now that there is there is escalating tensions between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Across the region, signals are intensifying. The United States has expanded its military posture in the Middle East, reinforcing deterrence capabilities and concerns over Iran's nuclear trajectory, regional proxy networks, and maritime in the Gulf. At this particular time, as I'm talking to you, there is said to be quote unquote negotiation talks, but they don't seem to be getting very, very far. You know how it gets. When I have a female guest, it becomes even more special. My guest today, she's new to the family, but my gosh, she is as important as any other guest, and our Zoom just went off. I saw her and the Zoom just went off. Perhaps we can get her back, please. Whilst we're doing let me introduce her. She is an award-winning foreign correspondent and former Middle East reporter to the Sunday Times of London. She's the author of Hezbollah, Born with a Vengeance, and a seminal examination of the rise and evolution of the Lebanese movements. She is the author of The Flying Carpet of Small Miracles, a powerful memoir blending frontline reportage with personal reflection during the Iraq War and its aftermath. Her name is Ms. Hala, and she joins us all the way from Beirut in Lebanon. Hala, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and thank you for that introduction.
It's an absolute honor, and it is an incredibly big pleasure to have you all the way from Lebanon. How's Beirut? Because I know you have the weather can be cold, it can be warm. What's going on with the weather over there right now?
Actually, today in particular, it's absolutely freezing. It's like I'm in Beirut and I was walking and doing some errands, and I'm thinking, I've never felt Beirut so cold. It's about to snow in Beirut. It feels like it. It's icy cold.
Wow. Well, perhaps.
But it's calm.
It's calm. Okay, I was just going to say, is it calm? Because given, the aggressions of Israel, on the borders.
Oh, yeah. Israel continues to aggress on the borders, but Beirut itself is calm.
Excellent. So let's talk about, really, the focus of today's conversation, the current escalation between Iran and the United States. So many analysts describe this as the most dangerous U.S. Iran standoff in years. What do you think?
I think yes, it is. It is very serious. It is very grave. I think war is not inevitable, but I think the way everybody is now sort of positioned themselves, the risk of miscalculation is very, very high. And we're seeing right now like a triangle of pressure. On the one hand, you have the US, which is. So where were we?
Yes, you were talking.
So yeah, I was saying that war is not inevitable, but I.
Oh. We seem to be. Yeah, I'm not hearing you. I can see your lips moving. But for because I can see you, but
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's a mixture of both. The gremlins, technology can sometimes have its own way. Right, let's try again. Can you hear me, Jabba?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, I was saying that right now there is a triangle of pressure, between Washington, Tehran, and Israel. Washington is, and each one of these three seems to be working on a different timeline. So Washington is using pressure through its massive military armada in the region. Tehran is resilient and saying it will not bow and capitulate. And Israel is the most impatient of them all because, it is waiting for something and it might decide to go in unilateral. So yes, this is the gravest showdown, if you want, or preparation that we have seen in the region for a while. And like I said, there is always this risk of miscalculation, which could lead to an escalation, which could lead to a war that could spill into the region and beyond the region.
And this is interesting that you mentioned beyond the region, because one of the things that, it's interesting, even when we hear about the negotiations, the conversations, we tend to hear a lot more about what President Donald Trump has said, not so much about what the Iranian government are saying. So one of the things, I want us to go into alternative media like you're on now, Borderlines, to be able to hear what the real conversation is. And one of the conversations that's going on is that President Trump had reached out somehow to the Iranians and said, look, allow me to bomb a couple of sites, and then you can respond, how you do, so I can calm this thing down. Is that true reflection of what you think had happened in the background?
I am not so sure that this is. I don't think they've reached that point yet. I think they are still in a negotiation scenario. They are still negotiating, albeit the negotiations are frayed, and there hasn't been an agreement yet. There is no ceasefire agreement. There is no agreement to that a deal has been struck. But there are. They seem to be talking, and they seem to be closing the gap, albeit very, very, very slowly. I don't think that the US really wants to launch a war. I don't think Trump wants to launch a war, because I think they do recognize that no one can actually predict what the aftermath or what the repercussions of such a war may be, what the spillover may be. And on the Iranian side as well, they certainly do not want a war. Whether Trump has, this is a scenario that I think happened last year before the 12-day war, when there were some surgical strikes carried out on the basis that, we'll do these strikes and then that's, call it a day and it's all over. I don't think that's the case now. I think talks are still ongoing. I think again they might be longer than what we are anticipating, because neither side, and particularly the US, wants to go into this war. But I don't think the danger at the moment is there. I think the danger could be from Israel, because Israel is the one that would be impatient. Israel sees things differently. Israel has a different set of demands, and therefore it might at some point go in unilateral.
And this was going to be my next question. The impact, the factor, or the impact the Israeli factor has on the negotiations, indeed, on the ears, because you have Jared Kushner, you have the other guy whose name has come out of my head. Witkoff, thank you so much, who seem to be, yes, we'll meet, yes, we'll discuss, and then all of a sudden you get Netanyahu, President Netanyahu, fly to the United States. And, the conversation seemed to kind of get really kind of aggressive, or at least, the words we're hearing from Donald Trump started to get sort of more aggressive, more bombastic, the better negotiator or else. How crucial or how big is that Israeli factor on what could possibly happen?
Oh, it's very big. It's very serious as well. At the moment, Israel, at the moment, Trump is able to contain, or at least ask Israel not to do anything and to allow time for the Americans and the Iranians to have these negotiations. And Trump has said several times that the decision is totally his. Meaning,
but do we believe that?
No. I think Israel is allowing. I think Israel is allowing some time, but again, I think Israel will not sit back and allow this to go on for very long. Israel sees this as a way whereby gaining time, Iranians strengthen their position. You see, one of the things in these discussions is that the US and the public at large, we're all focused on the disarmament side of things. For Israel, the demands or the conditions or the requirements are totally different. For Israel, it's not just the enrichment that's a factor. One of the main factors for Israel is actually the missile numbers or the missile production in Iran. And they want that stopped more than anything else, because the missiles can be a threat, a danger to the Israelis, because of the distances that they have, and because of the precision that they are. So for Israel, if they see, for example, that America is not discussing the missile scenario, it's concentrating on the nuclear enrichment. If Israel feels that, for example, or says that it has intelligence that Iran is overproducing, or it's actually increasing the distances, or that the missile production is continuing at a rate where Israel feels threatened and endangered, then Israel will go on its own and actually carry out strikes against Iran. So there's
but
no
can Israel carry out strikes against Iran without the Americans?
Yes, they can, because they feel that the Americans will always side with them. Americans will come to their rescue. I mean, look, if Israel carries out a first strike or second strike and Iran retaliates, which we know Iran will retaliate, they've said as much. When we say we know, it's not that we're privy to their military plans, but they have declared that this is what they would do. So, and Iran will strike Israel very hard and very harsh. This would automatically drag the Americans into the fray, even if the Americans were not planning to be, or were not planning, or were not wanting to go into a war. They will not abandon Israel. Further, I think also Israel has been emboldened from last year after the 12-day war, having watched and seen the support they got from the United States, but also that, they consider that this does not actually spill over as much as people anticipated, then they are safe if they were to do it again this year. The difference is last year, even Iran was being contained, if that makes sense. Restrained, not contained. It was being self-restrained. It was imposing self-restraint. Yes, they were firing missiles at Israel at a large number, but they continued to be restrained. This time around, I don't think Iran will be as restrained, and I think Iran will go full-fledged or full war, full missile drops on Israel. And yes, the United States then will be dragged into the fray of this war. There are reports, there are people that say, this is where this has all been planned, where Israel will come in and start this war, and then, it's the bad cop, and then the United States will actually help Israel out because they don't want for the United States to be seen as the one actually starting the war. Who knows? But your question, can Israel start this on its own? Yes, it can. And I think there will be a point where if it feels that it is under threat, Israel will come up with any excuse, and the US will have to sort of stand by it.
Steve Witkoff has said, and he said this, I mean, I think it was all over mainstream media everywhere, that, President Trump had become frustrated because the Iranians would not capitulate. That is really quite something. What surprised most watchers is that, was this a case of the United States underestimating the Iranian character capacity to stand their ground, despite what happened in the 12 days war last year? Or is there something else to it?
First, I think it's very, very, very strange, and sort of not the norm for an official or a diplomat or under whatever to use that word, capitulate. That they're actually expecting Iran to capitulate. Now the thing is, they think that because they have sent such a huge armada into the region, what we're seeing is massive. It's a first of its kind since, I don't know, for a while, for a long time. That this would normally put fear or put God's fear into, say, another country, right? That might be a bit weaker. They believe that having put all this around Iran, that Iran would actually feel very, very, very worried, because, they do know, and Iran does know, that if we want to talk about it from a superiority point of view, there's no question that the US has the superior power militarily, right? But Iran here, but Iran, what they're forgetting is it's nearly 4 decades, over 4 decades since the revolution, and Iran has been under sanction and so-called at war with the rest of the Western world. And it has refused to bow. It has never, quote unquote, capitulated, right? It had never surrendered. And it refused to be, a yes man state to the US or anybody else. And they have paid a high price as a result. They are the second most sanctioned country in the world currently, and this is only because the Russia has become number one following the Ukrainian war. But Iran has been under sanctions for decades, and they have not, again, we'll use Witkoff's words, capitulated. And I don't think they have intention to do so now. The US, it is worrying if after 4 decades the US continue to misread and misunderstand and not recognize that, this is not the way to deal with a country like Iran, and Iran will not be doing the bidding for the US, and that the only proper way is really diplomatically, but I don't mean just negotiation. I mean diplomatically, whereby, they're not talking from a position of, we are the higher authority here, and you have to fall within our realm or our demands or our conditions. They have to be talking equally. They have to provide things to Iran. They have to give her incentives, which at the moment are not available. So it is strange that they think, but I mean, maybe this is the American viewpoint of the world, that when they say something, you all fall in line. When they bring the armada, you all, your knees jerk and you drop dead, basically. Iran is proving them wrong.
And this is what's interesting, because, of course, again, we have to talk about the sanctions. After years and years of, sanctions, economic pressure on Iran, Iran continues to be defiant, is the only word, I think is the right word one can put it. And, I remember somebody saying something to me about the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, no, not Lebanese, the Houthis, yes.
Yemenis, yeah.
The Yemenis.
Ansar Allah, yeah.
Yes, that there's something about when a country has only known aggression from the outside, they become extremely hardened and you can't scare them no more. So at what point does sanction begin to lose its power? Because it would appear that's where Iran is.
Yes, the sanctions on Iran have been extreme, have been severe, actually. Like I said, it's the second most sanctioned country currently, following Russia. And the only reason Russia is number one is because of the Ukrainian war. But prior to that, Iran was the most sanctioned country in the entire world, and it continues to be, heavily sanctioned to this day. It's the second at the moment. Now, sanctions. Look, history has shown us and has proven that sanctions do not actually bring about what you perceive or what you need or what you want, right? Sanctions do not fulfill that. They usually hit the local people. They hit the smaller people more than they do the regime, but they also harden the governments that are being sanctioned. They harden the people as well, because the more you sanction a country, yes, the people are in pain economically. Iran, there's no question, Iran is paying a heavy price as a result of the sanction. That the sanctions are causing serious stress in the country amongst the people. But increasing that but they have survived it for over 4 decades, and increasing it more will only harden the government's mentality in as far as, how much they can trust what the West or what Washington or what anyone is demanding of them. So will more sanctions succeed? It's a very slow, if they introduce further sanctions, I mean, I don't know what else is left for them to sanction, but if they discover something else that they could sanction, they're hurting the people more than they're hurting the government. But they have already said openly that they would try, and if it takes for them to actually squeeze the population, the Iranian population, further and further, to cause further internal rift in the country and bring about then a regime change, they would go ahead and do that if talks don't work and there is no war happening. So yeah, I think Iran is prepared. But the one thing Iran has shown is, after 4 decades of being sanctioned, and I mean sanctioned like you have no idea, they've managed to produce missiles, they're enriching uranium, they've got scientists, they have some of the best medicines in the region. Like, when you, instead of buying French or British or American, they do their own versions of these, and we're talking cancer medication, we're talking serious illness medications. Iran is producing all this, and this is a country that's under heavy sanctions, and it's still it's got its own cars, its own, it's doing a lot of, it's producing a lot of things scientifically, economically, financially, militarily, that usually countries under sanctions cannot do. But yeah, it is also suffering, and these sanctions are beginning to eat away internally, especially amongst the population.
So we saw the protests a couple of weeks ago. They calmed down. And now, all of a sudden, 2 days ago, new protests have erupted again on the streets. All of this in parallel with these so-called negotiations, which we believe is ongoing, is going relatively well, give or take this, there, and whatever. Why then are Iranians are on the streets again? Is that Israel? Is that the United States? Or is it just the will of the people, the Iranian people?
I mean, it depends what kind. If we, I mean, when these protests started, there was a difference. There were protesters, and those were economic protesters, and that was legitimate and that was acceptable. And then you had the rioters, and that was a totally different ballgame. Rioters were on the streets causing havoc, actually using violence. So there was a difference between protesters that started, the merchants that started, and the rioters that took violence on. Iran, I mean, I don't know about the latest ones, but if they are the same kind of rioters that are protesting, then obviously these are, we know that these are being triggered by the Pahlavis outside, by, yes, of course, both the Mossad and the US are also, well, they did participate in the first round, and they would love to see the second round. I mean, like they've said it, they've declared it already that, if things go, if the internal strife happens, it's better. And eventually they will make sure that is what brings down the government of Iran, or what they call the regime of Iran, rather than through war. So I think these are, if they are helping or they are encouraging such, it is all part and parcel of the pressure that they are applying on Iran at the moment to concede to these negotiations. So it's not just negotiations, it's not just military threats, it's not just economic and sanctions threat, it's also internal strife. So they're bringing it from every which way, right? To subdue Iran, or to make Iran finally kneel down and say, okay, I accept your conditions, and let's move forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are all, inciting these kind of riots at the moment.
And here's the other thing. I'm glad you mentioned Pahlavi. You have, well, at the very least, looking in from the outside, we seem to have a divided Iran. You have the Iranian people who support Pahlavi, and then you also have the Iranian people in Iran themselves. Are there Iranians in Iran who support Pahlavi? And how important is the Pahlavi factor?
I mean, I'm sure there are Iranians inside Iran who support Pahlavi. Yeah. It's like any country. It's like in your country or my country. There will be internal people that support the opposition of what you are or whoever, But the fact of the matter is that, again, after 4 decades, or since 1979 and the revolution in Iran, the current government, the theocracy and the president and the parliament and the system of politics has failed. You see also for example, when Iran is under stress or is being sort of pressured by the West, when sanctions are being imposed, severe sanctions are being imposed on it, when strikes are being carried against it, when its top senior people are being assassinated, what you find amongst the Iranians is those Iranians that are living currently in Iran, you find one thing that always happens. They actually put their political differences aside and they all align around the country, the sovereignty, right? They stand behind the current government, whatever their political difference is. This is about Iran now, and therefore they put everything aside and they stand behind it and they support it. So you don't see fragility, you don't see breakdown in internal breakdown, and you don't see mass, for example, you don't see the military abandoning or turning against the government. You don't see the diplomats doing that. So it's holding. Something still holds. So that is a suggestion. That is a clear suggestion or indication that within Iran, they do actually, the government still has legitimacy amongst a huge faction or number of the population. The Pahlavis outside, I mean, the prince, look, it's very, so people can be romantic as well. Because of the way he was, because of how they left. So this romantic vision of the prince and the king and the era, but they forget that era was quite awful as well. The torture was rampant, prisons, people were, the difference between the poor and the rich was massive. I mean, the revolution didn't come out of nowhere. There were reasons for it. So there's a tendency to forget how bad also the Pahlavis were. I mean, the father, and this family's history is not as clean and pure and democratic and lovely and as they claim for it. How much of an influence he has? I don't think currently he has a massive influence internally. I think there are people that will agree to him, but there are people that not necessarily, they might be against the government, the current situation in Iran, against the current government in Iran, but not pro-Pahlavis either. They want a different kind of Iran. So these are all possibilities, but I think the majority within Iran are at the moment standing behind this government. Otherwise, the country would not have survived for so long.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's talk about, the region, regional stability. So you have groups that support Iran. They operate in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and other parts of the region, especially Hezbollah, who is one of the most influential. You've written extensively about Hezbollah. To what extent could a localized confrontation erupt if everything falls apart right now?
To what? Sorry, I'm missing. I'm losing my battery.
Okay. Oh wow.
I'll get another. I've got another pair. I'll get it in a second.
Okay. All right. My question was: to what extent could a localized confrontation widen into a multi-frontal regional war if everything we're seeing right now falls apart?
The $1 million question: will Hezbollah and all the other allies
rise to defend Iran? Yes.
To defend Iran. I don't think. Look, I mean, it's hard to tell, but and they've all made statements to the effect that they support Iran and they will provide whatever necessary, whenever necessary. But it's the whenever necessary. So, I don't think initially we're going to see that happening. This is now me, just my analysis. I think they would. I think Iran does not expect them to either. I think Iran is capable and has the capacity to go this on its own, knowing that if need be, its allies are there. I think Hezbollah and Ansarullah and the Iraqis will stand as observants initially. Now, it depends what kind of war. If we're talking about, like you said earlier, a few strikes here, there, and here and there, and it's all, and everybody saves face, and everybody, is seen to have done what they've threatened to have done, and everybody goes home, then no one is going to interfere. If the war escalates and becomes very regional, then it's not just about saving Iran. I think Israel is going to, again, we bring Israel in. Israel is not going to allow Hezbollah to be left without actually striking. It might initiate strikes against Hezbollah because it wants to sort of, it wants to neutralize it.
Okay.
Want to neutralize it in order for it not to help Iran. For example, Israel, for all we know, might actually attack Hezbollah even before they attack Iran. Do you see what I'm saying? They might want to try and neutralize these allies so that when they actually concentrate on Iran, they have no competition, okay? Or they don't have to worry about the allies. However, there's one point or element. If any attack in Iran or any war launched on Iran appears to be, or they actually go after Sayyid Khamenei, yes. I mean, there is no question. No, Iran does not have to ask. No one will ask them. You will see the entire not Shiites only, Ansarullah, all Iran's allies will rise. And a lot of Shiites beyond Iran would also rise. I mean, this is the main red line that would trigger that, yeah? But again, I mean, at the moment, that does not seem to be the case that they're seeking, but one does not trust what they say because they've said this before and they've done different things. And we've seen what they did with Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah here. So they have no red lines. And if they really want a regime change, then that might be one of the way that they go through. And yeah, that will cause a huge war. I mean, that will spill, but we're talking then a war that has spilled beyond the region. And I don't think even the countries within the region want such a war to happen. And I think they have been playing a part, back channels, to make sure that to calm the US and to make sure that this doesn't, that they do negotiations, they try and reach some sort of an agreement or an understanding without having going to military war.
Thank you. Right. You can call. I hope you've been sending your WhatsApp message. You know that the female line isn't working, but you can call the male line 0201 277 0993 or send your message or comments to WhatsApp on 0809 597 5805. Of course, we are live on YouTube, so you can also put your comments on the YouTube and we will try to get to them. We don't have much time, Hala. I'm enjoying talking to you. This is your first time. So before the calls start coming in, because they will soon start coming in, we seem to be having
Before these goes, maybe I should jump and get the other one. Sorry.
Oh, right. Okay.
My earpods.
All right. Okay.
My battery,
Okay. Did you want to...
Can you still hear me
Yes,
now?
I can. Yes, I can.
It's still going.
Okay. Brilliant. Hopefully we'll be done before it goes out. Hopefully. Yeah. So before the calls start coming in, because no doubt it will, although we're having problems with our phone lines, I'd like to talk to you, take you, let's go slightly sideways to, especially as you live in Lebanon and given your extensive experience of the region. This week, a story was trending, and I mean, I've watched the interview. It's compelling. 2.5-hour interview with Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, who is the American ambassador to Israel. Out of a lot of, and I really will encourage everybody who cares to know to actually watch that.
Listen.
But the one part that was trending, which is quite discombobulating, I think both for American, Christians and Christian evangelists and everybody else, was when Tucker Carlson asked Mike Huckabee about his position, his rhetoric that God gave Israel the land to Jews, and Mike, to which Tucker Carlson said, well, you must be talking, according to Genesis, we're talking about from the river to the from River Nile to Euphrates. That's pretty much the whole of the Middle East. That's a lot of countries. Are you then saying that Israel has a right to take over all these countries? Because, of course, we know that Israel has often expressed their desire for a greater Israel, one of the instructions they inherited from Ben Gurion. And Mike Huckabee's words, I mean, I'd like to get your opinion on it, was, well, yes, if they want it. And that's such a humongous shift, the opposite shift to U.S. foreign policy in forever. What are your thoughts as somebody who lives in the region, who, of course, we know, there's still the Israeli aggressions on the borders of your country, etc. What are your thoughts when you heard that? What are people saying in Lebanon when they heard that?
I mean, look, for us in Lebanon and for many in the region, this does not come as a surprise. We've known this for a long time. The Israelis have said this one way or another for a long time. The fact that Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, said this should be shocking a little bit, but not as much as people expect us to be shocked. I'll tell you why. Because he works for a president and a country that actually, something that no other Western leader or country ever agreed to do or encouraged, is, to change the embassy, to place it in Jerusalem and call Jerusalem the capital of Israel. And Trump did that in his first term. To consider the occupied Golan Heights, to give those. Again, this was, under the UN, they are occupied Golan Heights. Again, he signed for that, and, they belong to Israel. So when someone like Huckabee says something like that, it is not as shocking to us as it should be, because we've known this. We've been saying this. People used to say you exaggerate. You're just, it's anti-Semitism or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, Israel has not hidden this. And I think that the difference now is Israel has been emboldened in the last 2 years since October 7, and what happened after October 7, the war that they launched, and the severity of the war, the harshness of it, what they did in Lebanon, and the fact that no one in the world has actually stood up to it and said enough is enough, penalized Israel, imposed sanctions, done anything serious. Israel has been emboldened. So what they used to hide in the past and not say out as loud as in, the larger Israel dream, which they've always had, by the way, it's not new. They are now emboldened to say it openly and brazenly. And people like Huckabee, I mean, I think he's a Jew, but he's a Zionist. You do have a lot of American Zionists, and this is all part and parcel of their dream. And yes, they believe God. Excuse me, guys. I am actually breaking fast as I speak to you with my coffee.
Go ahead.
But
go ahead.
And forgive me, God, for what I'm about to say, because they actually believe that God was an estate agent at some point or another. Promising them lands here, there, and everywhere. I mean, it's whatever is in the Bible and what they read religiously, and what happened, what 3,000 years ago or whenever is neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is that Lebanese will not accept that. Neither would the Syrians, nor the Iraqis, nor the Saudis. Nobody would. Trump, I'm sure, has heard what his ambassador said and didn't budge, but the region did. The Saudis were very loud about it. The other countries, the Arab countries that were involved, were very loud about it, and they made complaints to the Americans. But what would happen? He'll get a little slap on the hand and be told to be careful next time, and how he, voices things. We've been there, seen that,
Indeed.
Done the circle and got T-shirts for it,
Indeed.
so to speak.
Indeed. Thank you. I have a question on WhatsApp. Hello, Sergey. Donald Trump wants the war for Israel because he has always been a warmonger and puppet for Israel. Israel is only good at bombing residential areas, hospitals, and broadcast houses. They cannot survive a real war of attrition. Which country will accept those ridiculous demands from Netanyahu and Trump after murdering generals and nuclear scientists and their families in the middle of quote unquote fake negotiations. That's Ima, which I believe it must be Emmanuel. That's Emmanuel from Lagos wrote that. And this is the thing. Before we go, I need to ask you about this. Here's the other thing. It appears that Americans are saying to Iran that they cannot have. So Iran has ballistic missiles, long range, short range, medium range, you name it. They've shown that they can reach Israel. And if they can reach Israel, they can reach other parts of the region. Now, the Americans are telling them to not only drop their missiles, to then send their nuclear arsenal, or not arsenal so much, their nuclear material to another country, basically saying to them, you're a sovereign country, but we don't want you to have the right to defend yourself.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
No country will accept that. Iran will not accept that. They're doing what they did in Syria. I mean,
let me interrupt you. 1 second. Let me just answer that call because we're about to be done. Hello. Oops, I don't know what's going on. Hello.
Yeah, to say good. Thank you very much.
Very quickly.
Yeah, in the life,
we have 1 minute.
Yes, in the light of the last question concerning the U.S. ambassador to Israel, that has been already rejected by Egypt, Saudi, Qatar, and some other countries. Does she think that even given that as a background, Iran, who is the last and the only resistance to America and Israel, is going to allow any kind of thing that will, cripple them and eventually for Israel to, get all over the Gulf?
Thank you very much.
That is going to happen?
Thank you. Okay, there you go. You can answer both together. I'll let you speak. I'll give you a minute. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is the only country at the moment standing up and resisting, and this is not acceptable. We've seen this in the past. You're not supposed to stand up to Big Daddy America. You're not supposed to say no. You're supposed to agree. Now, the more important one is what you were saying earlier. Look, everyone has seen what happened in Syria. Okay, after Assad left and the new regime took over. They were not planning on fighting anybody. They didn't want to fight Israel. They didn't want to fight anybody. They just wanted to sort of get their country together. Israel actually bombed all their military installations. Continues to bomb Syria to this day. They have been stripped of all their military hardware. Still, they get bombed. Israel has moved into the areas and occupied quite a big area within Syria, is now under Israeli occupation within the Golan. And they say, we will not be leaving that area. This is ours. And the Syrians are unable to do anything. And the Syrians, despite the overtures that they have provided about, we're not at war with, we're not trying to have a war with Israel, and we may in the future make agreements with Israel, still they are under attack by the Israelis. So when you see that a country has been stripped of everything militarily, and this is what they're requiring Iran to do, you think Iran is going to accept this? And what guarantees will Iran have when Israel comes and decides to bomb this, that, and the other, because Israel deems it is a threat to it?
Thank you so much, Hala Jabbar. You see, your AirPods, the batteries waited to the very end. Thank you so much for joining us live from Beirut. We will be asking you to come back, my sister. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Have
it was
a wonderful
pleasure.
Weekend.
The honor is all mine. Thank you.
.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.